But Jimmy, your job was to make sure the radio got to hear that. I mean, what did you do to make sure that those tracks really, hit the
Okay.
airwaves?
Before I go any further, I just want to make sure we give a shout out to Harlem. Because without Harlem, that's what our whole persona was
Yeah,
designed after. All right.
yeah,
Uh, so when you see that cat, that's a Harlem cat. The flavor, the beeper, the gold chain, and is really an educated cat too as well. So when I first met Eddie and these guys, they made these records. They made the compilation album. Uptown is kicking it out. So those two records came off of there first. Nobody knew who Heavy D and the Boys were, and nobody knew who the Uptown crew were. So
right.
when I started, I had to go to the street, and I had already invented the street team. I already had a street team. Shout out to Chuck Bone, and we had a street team called the Gas Station, and the gas station worked for me and Andre while we were in college, giving out posters, flyers, and very going radio, very limited to get a commercial going or whatever. So I would always start out in the street. I would go to the clubs, the restaurants, the Rucker game. I had teams at the Rucker. We went to the rooftop. I took Heavy D and the Boys there the first time they performed at the rooftop. And that was a sight to see because they were always prepared. Like many groups would distinguish them from every other group was that their presentation was clean cut, fly, Mount Vernon / Harlem. Me and Andre gave them the Harlem, but they already had the haircuts, the styling. Shout out to G Wiz, who definitely did all of that. He did all the choreography. Him and Troy, they came up with it. They didn't have anybody coming in and doing that for him. He dressed heavy. He dressed Eddie and everything. And the set design as well. Eddie was the first person to have a whole presentation on stage. You know what I mean? Even in a little club. Like he had, outboard gear. He had the drum machine. He had the lights. He had the whole show presentation set up already. And then they coordinated with the choreography and the style and the flavor. And that was the set off of Uptown Records. You know what I mean? Now, where we get this education from in music, it begins with Andre Harrell and Teddy Riley. Andre giving Teddy the vision of what it would look like, sound like, what the women would look like, what the men's haircut would look like, the shoes, the pants, everything. How they would even facial gestures. We sat down every day, every night when we go to work for 16 hours. The other 8 hours was designing the set, the scene, from the office to the club. And we went to the club every single night to promote records, 4 and 5 clubs a night. And sometimes we'd come from DC to New York, back to Philly. So, and that was like a run. We created and hired the people that originally started doing the Howard Homecoming. Shout out to Mark Barnes, who was doing the Howard Homecoming parties. And at those parties, we started bringing Uptown acts to those parties. As a result of that, now you look around, you see the girls from Uptown, you see in Jodeci, Heavy D, Al B. Shore when he was at his height, Bobby Brown, New Edition. We came into the door where MCA was a traditional company that promoted records traditionally. I broke the mold. I went any fucking way I wanted to go, and I promoted the records any kind of way I wanted to promote them. And I went to at that time they didn't want black music and black executives going to pop radio or going to pop press. I went to pop press. I went to pop radio stations and promoted my records. Now, not that they put them on automatically. They didn't put them on automatically at black radio. But what I did was build up a groundswell in the street so hard and heavy, you know what I mean, that they had to put them on. They had to come to me to ask me to put my records on because that's how heavy the groundswell was on the street. And then we had doing promotions with our artists and having them perform everywhere, as many places as we can, that we would pay for it, for that to happen, not a promoter. We would make sure we paid for them at first on a promotional run and everything like that. And then when MCA kicked in and took us from just a production deal to a distribution deal, more money came in for promotion, and then we became a bigger presence at radio.
The first two singles we always talk about is Uptown's Kicking It
Mr. Big,
and Mr. Big Stuff. Why do you think Mr. Big Stuff actually broke through and became the hit that it did? Especially Heavy D and the Boys were they were young, they were younger than Run DMC. They were quite different. So you couldn't compare them with anyone else. What do you think? Was it the production, or do you think it was the way Heavy sounded, or what did you think made that record?
Well, it was a combination.
The breakthrough.
It was
record.
a combination. It was the production. It was very, clean, commercialized to a certain degree. It wasn't underground, dirty. It was formatted for radio, and that's because of the people that was involved with it, like Eddie and Teddy and whoever, Marley or whoever else was involved with the production of those records, mixing them or whatever, right? Then it was the way they looked. They were clean cut, and the way they moved, their whole presentation. Eddie's production on stage, bringing all this major production on stage. This is like a production you would see an R&B group have, like Rick James or something like that. Or, it was this is the first time in hip hop we seen this level of production on stage. And then the way Heavy looked, and Glenn and Troy, they were clean cut, they were dancing, you know what I mean? So you could basically call them almost happy, but they wasn't really that happy, like happy rappers. and Heavy was big and dancing and clean cut. He dressed like a slim guy, but he's actually a big guy. And his haircut was always perfect. See, like everybody else prior to that, even if you look at Big Daddy Kane, he was never, and there's no disrespect to him, never as clean as Heavy D and the Boys. So it wasn't just the rapping and Heavy's vocal ability or Eddie's production ability and presentation. It was a combination of things. And then, so I'm bringing it to the radio station, and the radio station is like, yo, this ain't Def Jam rap. This ain't, this ain't Run DMC, or this ain't Public Enemy, or this is not that. We can't play that. And I was like, first of all, I don't even want to go into the time where they segue for the rap music. I want to go on regular rotation.
Right.
I want to force you in regular rotation. I'm not trying to get on rap attack, none of that shit first. I want to get in regular rotation first and then come back. Now that part is me selling myself. And that's where I had to establish relationships with program directors all around the country and eventually all around the world. And so it was a slow process, but Heavy D and the Boys were the ones that broke through for us at first with our first major record, our first platinum album, and it was because of a combination of things why that happened. Heavy was the first person to perform with Michael Jackson and do a video with him, and perform with Janet Jackson and do a video with her. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you guys were global. I mean, at the time I was in Nigeria, and Mr. Big Stuff and Don't You Know, that whole album was big international, so it wasn't just in the US.
I want to say one more thing. Eddie was the guy that Eddie did in Living Color, the production on Living Color. So that's what his role in that group and in Uptown Records in general, because he A&R'd basically everything that came out of there, and he was like the unofficial A&R, the president of A&R of Uptown Records. You know what I mean?
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that kind of.
And somewhere in between
us for even loving us, on which I didn't miss you with.
What was it like growing up?
She's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No, okay.
They don't understand what those boys do in all
Play it.
these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.